Hola, Colombia. It's my great pleasure to be with you today for the TIGO Revolucion event. I'm going to speak to you about the future of communications and technology, and I'm going to kick off by taking a look at 2020. This is what happened in 2020. All of us are still in this crisis, and yeah, it's been pretty tough. And I think we need to stick together and make sure that we can help each other and show solidarity and use the best we can to reinvent and to get going into next year. Hopefully, there'll be light of the end of the tunnel next year. But one thing is for certain, we should be sure to understand that we're not going back to normal. We're not going back to what we used to have. We're not going back to the pre-COVID days. And maybe normal wasn't good enough when we looked back at 2 years. Why are we not going back? Well, we've changed our mind about many things. And we have experienced how important it is to be prepared. We have understood how important it is to have strong healthcare and the right decision making and the right policies in place. And we have changed our priorities. We are certainly looking at a world where we're saying, well, what's going to happen after COVID? And we're going to try to figure out what it is that we want from it. And I was just listening this morning to Bill Gates and Rashida Jones and also to Mr. Fauci about the future with COVID. And here's a couple of key points that Bill Gates made that I think are very important. We're going to keep on having remote meetings because that is a new habit. And this will be a very big change of working in Colombia. I know many places are not that connected yet, but it will happen very quickly. And imagine with 5G how we can work remotely, probably better connectivity than in the office. And, we may share an office with other companies. We may rotate. We're going to have a hybrid work scenario to where I will work at home for 2 days, one day here, one day there. And that's going to become the new normal. That's going to change our city. That's going to change the rents in the city. That's going to change, of course, the commuting and everything that we do. We can choose to live in different places. We don't have to live in the city center. And that's all changes that are coming in the next couple of years. And clearly, we're also going to socialize differently. Maybe not so much at work, but more in the community that we live. And that's all been egged on by COVID, but of course it was there before. It's not like COVID has single-handedly changed this. But, sometimes I compare the current situation to World War II. And what happened in World War II, of course, is that this was the first time in history, in society, in industrial society, that women were brought to work because all men were in the war, right, on the battlefront. And so women came into the workforce, and that continued when the war ended. This, of course, primarily European phenomena, but also in America. All of a sudden, it's normal for women to work. And we're going to do the same thing with COVID. Many things that we are learning in COVID are going to continue. Work from home, study from home, e-commerce, ordering things, using the mobile, mostly also, of course, technology-based advantages. But some of those things will require, of course, better infrastructure, which is a really important topic pretty much around the world, and that seems to be what 5G is going to promise. But we are going warp drive into this future. I don't think for a minute that we're going slowly, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we're going exponentially. Warp drive means we're hitting the button and boom, we're off. Just imagine in 10 years what Colombia will look like in 10 years. Right? 5G everywhere, fast connectivity, a virtual capability of doing pretty much anything you want, pretty much anywhere. Maybe not in the middle of the Amazon quite yet, but in the near future, yeah, connectivity everywhere. And that's going to be warp drive changes, and they're currently sort of accelerated by COVID, right? We have learned to do things differently. And that's going to last for most of next year, I think. And basically what we see around us is warp drive into the future. Just a couple examples, right? Everything is in the cloud. Entertainment is everywhere, whether it's books or films or television or, of course, digital money. E-commerce everywhere. Learning from home, entertainment, as I said before, and, of course, meetings and telemedicine, right? We are able now to see the doctor even though we may not have to go to the doctor. And I know this is still going to take some time to reach all portions of your country, as it is in most countries, except for maybe where I live in Switzerland. But it will also be a habit change. Imagine if you can go to the doctor by just using your smart wristband on a mobile phone, and you can send data to the doctor and get feedback. That's going to happen very quickly in the future. very exciting convergence of technology and biology. And pharma companies and medical companies are becoming tech companies. And I think there's been many trials on this in Colombia as to see how that network will in the future be maintained and how we can have a safe situation of having our medical data in the cloud. So really we're going to be here and juggle all kinds of things in the future. And that goes especially for the millennials. You know, the kids, the generation Y, that is currently between 20 and 30, maybe 35 years old, juggling all of those new things and reinventing themselves. We're going to reinvent what we do for work, where we work, how we work, who we want to work for. We're not going to want to work for companies that aren't connected and that aren't giving us the right choices. And that's a very strong thing for the millennials. So if you're looking at 20 to 30-year-olds, there's going to be lots of behavior shifts in the next 10 years. And those are people that want different things. Our world is going to change more in the next 10 years than the previous 100 years. And I think it's quite clear that especially in so-called developing countries, that is going to mean a hell of a difference. Most of it very positive, but not all of it. Right? Because clearly technology also has the habit of becoming too scary, too fast, overwhelming, as we've seen on social networks. Right? So juggling, for example, news and media, this will be very important. We need public media, we need human media, we don't just need smart algorithms, and we need accountability. And that's all the things we're going to juggle in the near future. Huge opportunities. Technology is the driver of all of those pieces of society. But on the other hand, of course, our human values and what we want is going to dictate actually what comes out of it. So, warp drive towards an increasingly digital world. And that is going to happen pretty much anywhere. I think it's going to actually happen much quicker in so-called developing countries and countries like Colombia and also your neighbor in Brazil, quicker than most other countries, I think, because of the largeness of it. Right? I mean, just look at some of the statistics here, right? As we're seeing, computers are able to recognize images much quicker than before, which means, for example, if we have a scan at the doctor or at home, we can send it off and we can find abnormalities there. We're going to see all of the statistics, for example, on 3D printing, which means that in the future we'll be printing parts at the airport for the airplanes rather than having them shipped. 3D printing will become the new normal. And of course, we're going to 3D print earlobes and maybe kneecaps and dental implants. And, you know, 3D printing is a huge revolution in production and manufacturing. And the machines will be able to do more of human work. So if we're looking at this quite clearly, this is an understatement. Right? And the machine will be able to do lots and most of our routine work. This is not the end of human work. Right? It's a redistribution. In many ways, it's a liberation. But clearly, we're going to have to get ready for this one. I'll talk more about that later. And we're going to have a lot more people as freelance workers. I think that trend is clearly strong in the US and, of course, the UK also, but it's going to come to Colombia. I think in 10 years, maybe half of people will be freelance workers, work in the cloud and work remotely and work for international companies, but not actually go to the office. And most of our kids will have to reinvent their own job. And they'll have to come up with jobs that don't even exist. Just like, you know, I used to be in the music business, and most of the jobs in the music business today have to do with streaming and the cloud and data analytics. They didn't exist even 5 years ago. So let's get ready to invent our jobs and think of a near future. We can already safely see that what's happening here in technology, yeah, this is boom time for technology. The COVID time is actually boom time for technology. Right? And I think we need to start redistributing some of the benefits here as well. But clearly that is going to be the driver of everything, technology, connectivity, and then the counterbalance, which is humanity. And I'll talk about that in a second, but let's take a look at the 10 game changers of technology. And they're really sort of fueling everything that we are looking at, right? And they're fueling the entire industry, I think, in every country, but especially in Colombia, which is a very forward-looking country. From my many visits there, I have experienced this both in Medellin and also in Bogota, and of course also in Cartagena and other places like this. So basically the 10 game changers are the driving force of society as far as science and technology is concerned. It's all about data, It's about cloud computing. It's about the Internet of Things, connected devices, controlled devices, remote access, virtualization, quantum computing, really powerful supercomputing that's coming in the next 5 years, voice interfaces, being able to talk to your computer or your mobile phone and actually get a response like another human. Intelligent systems, I'll talk about that a little bit later. The blockchain, that's going to be absolutely everywhere for smart contracts and things like that. 3D printing, I mentioned before. Virtual reality, being able to do what we're doing right now, but being inside of something, wearing virtual reality glasses that are going to be unobtrusive, just like my regular glasses here. And genetic engineering, that's a little bit further away, but also in the wings. And these 10 game changers are all going to come together in the next 10 years. And they'll be sitting on top of each other. So it's not like we just have digital transformation. Right? We have the cloud. We have the Internet of Things. We have virtuality. If you're manufacturing or industry, this is going to drive all of the changes, and you better be aware of those and be ready to jump on the wagon, but also ask the right questions. Right? It's not like we're always going to say yes, and it will not apply to some businesses as much as to others. So we have to use our judgment and think about which way we're going. But clearly, what's happening here is that we're going into the future where I jokingly call this a smart converter. Right? It's basically sticking in the old business and out comes the smart business. That is the next 10 years, and especially in Colombia, that's going to be a very big deal. Yeah? Smart agriculture, smart food, smart farming, smart retail, right? Smart transport, smart government. And especially Medellin has made lots of steps in this direction in the past, in the immediate past, and it's been pretty impressive. And I think when we make everything smart and connected, and cloud and remote, yeah, we can get a lot of benefit from this. We can get data, we can make smarter decisions, we can act faster, but we also have to be safe, and this is the important part of smart everything. Everything should be as smart as possible, but not smarter. Yeah, we still need to have things that make humans important. So privacy, security, safety, very important. When we connect everything, we also have to make sure that there's rules and accountability. And that is the flip side, of course, of being connected. There is such a thing as being over-connected, right? Having too much information and having too much out there. So we have to find a balance, and that is always going to be crucial. I always say that the more we connect, the more we must protect what makes us human. It kind of goes together, and I'll explain a little bit more later on this. But clearly what's happening here is digital, everything is here, and I'll show you a couple of clips. For example, what we're seeing here with a digital twin. This is from Siemens, how we can actually monitor production equipment, manufacturing equipment, machines, computers remotely, and kind of get an idea of when they're going to need spare parts and if they are working correctly. That's called digital twins, and that's absolutely everywhere. And of course here, I think this is again in Medellin, or maybe actually Bogota, but it's the Rubly delivery robot that actually sends stuff out independently. And this, of course, is a great benefit in the times of Corona. Right? So this has been tried now in many places, and I think it's really starting to be an alternative to human delivery for simple things, obviously. Right? But you can take a look at that yourself. And of course, lastly, even food is going digital. Right? There's a company called Memphis Meats, and they produce food in the laboratory, which of course isn't digital. It's actually cells, right? But digital technology is being used. But this actual meat cells that are being produced, that are from meat, that taste like meat, but they're not from animals, or they are from animals, but they're not taken from the live animal, right? No animal cruelty involved. Memphis Meats. Bill Gates is one of the key investors here, and he says we're going to eat this meat in 10 years, it'll be 1/10 of the price of actual meat, which is a major issue, of course, everywhere, especially in Colombia, also beef and pork production. That's going to change our agriculture, and I think it would lead to lots of new innovation. Very, very interesting topic. And of course, digital everything. The Tour de France was actually online virtual reality with the bikers having their pelotons and riding in it. Very exciting stuff, not at all like the real Tour de France if you've ever been there. But still very exciting rather than not being there at all, and really high quality stuff. So really mind-boggling what people are doing as a response to the current crisis of COVID. And of course, Virtuality, I mentioned earlier, that's going to become the new normal in the times of working from home. Don't you wish you had a headset like this where you can dive in and be like Tom Cruise in Minority Report? This is a Oculus Rift called Infinite Office. I do wonder, though, if I wear this all day long, would I still want to take it off? Wouldn't it be boring not to have it? So that's going to change our habits. I'm not too sure whether to laugh or to cry when I think about this. And what if your employer would require you to wear it so you can be employed? Right? Those are all questions we have to tackle in the near future. Sometimes too much of a good thing can also be a very bad thing. And we have to make sure we find the right balance on this possibilities. I want to play you a short clip from my movie from 4 years ago. It's called Digital Transformation, Exponential Change. And it's got some key arguments as to what I'm talking about here and what I will talk about in the rest of my presentation.
Fueled by digitization, mobilization, augmentation, disintermediation, automation, well, the list goes on. Science fiction is becoming science fact. Think about self-driving cars or computers that can learn and think. The way we work will never be the same. The skills we need will be dramatically different. Winning or losing are now happening faster than ever before. So what's your response?
So yeah, that is the question. What is your response going to be when all this happens? You can watch this movie, by the way, on YouTube. Just look for Exponential Change or Gerd, Exponential Change, G-E-R-D. You'll find it. What is your response going to be? Well, clearly the future is no longer about tomorrow. The future is here. I mean, if you haven't realized this, the future is here. Just the very fact that we're here at a 5G event, right? That sounded like science fiction, like, up to 1 gig per second in download and no latency. That sounded like true science fiction. It's here now. Right? So the future is a mindset. It's in our heads. It's not tomorrow. And we have to develop a future mindset so that we can prosper. And the future mindset has many components, which I'll explain a little bit later. But really what we're seeing here is a world to where this kind of idea, understanding, right, becomes a key factor. And this is why I like to use the ears here, because it's about listening, it's about paying attention. And it's been said many times, the future belongs to those that can hear it coming and see it coming and feel it coming. Right? That's the future mindset. And this is something that we have to develop. We don't just buy technology to have a future mindset. The future mindset is inside. Right? Our real change is happening inside of us and inside of what we're thinking with our hearts and minds and our brain, of course. Right? So connectivity has been for a long time praised as a way to make more money and to increase GDP and to be more efficient. And that's true, but that's really kind of missing the point. Yeah? It's not just about efficiency and being faster and better and optimizing. It's about invention. And this is really, I think, this is why Colombia and together with Brazil in the future will be the key players, of course, in South America and possibly beyond that, right? Because of this idea of innovation and transformation, not just efficiency. That's what technology does. Take a look at these stats here. Statistics show really quite simple that some time ago, 2017, most companies said that they use technology to scale down the cost. Right? That is a top priority. Well, no longer, because now it's being used to reinvent. And really what's happening with technology is that it allows us to refocus the entire business around digital technology. And that means, of course, more efficiency, but also means new ways of doing things, reinventing ourselves and doing stuff that was impossible before. I mean, for example, autonomous cars and self-driving cars and assisted driving, that was unthinkable without all those things coming together. That's going to be the new normal. So if you're a company that's looking back at building a better diesel engine, you're in trouble, right? Because it's about new engines. It's about not anymore the regular transmissions, and it's about complete different approach to the whole thing. So refocusing around digital technology. And as a companion to that, it allows us to invent, and the invention has to be done by us, because that's our creativity, that's what we need. And this is why our kids, and of course us ourselves also, we have to develop creativity and resilience and agility, and those are things that have to be developed. They don't just fall off the sky. and we can't download them on the App Store. Right? So that comes with us being questioned, to actually move into the future. That's why I want to talk to you about the megashifts. And the megashifts are a key topic in my book, Technology versus Humanity. You can download it for free, the entire chapter in Spanish and, of course, other languages at megashifts.digital. It's about 15 pages, definitely worth a read. And really what's happening here is that these shifts are all over the place in terms of the different emphasis, and not just digitization. There are things like datafication, turning stuff into data, cognification, machines becoming smart, robotization, right? Augmentation. I mean, we used to call them the Asians because they all end with Asian, right? But that's going to change our society too. It changes the way that we look at work. And we have to get ready and understand where this has taken us. Great opportunities, but also great challenges. For example, the nature of work, which I will talk about in the chapter towards the end. But it's really quite simple. What's happening is that any job that is a routine, machines are learning. Not every job has a lot of routine, but think about call center, for example. Machines can learn how to do the call center. Not all of it, but some of it. It will change the way that we think about commerce and business and everything in the near future. Here's some examples about this. Nike went and shut down all the stores because of the COVID crisis, and now it's 82% online and making more money, doing more sales than ever before. The hotels are now starting to offer work from home in the hotel room options. So if you can't work from home because you got kids and dogs and snakes and whatever, right? Here you are in the hotel. You can work there for a great deal as long as you don't use the shower. Great idea. Now there's the first companies making COVID-approved equipment, for example, here to help with the distancing, the social distancing, airline cabins with the glass around it in a different logic. So that's being resilient, and that's actually reinventing. And Airbus, of course, is now inventing hydrogen-powered airplanes because, climate change and the need to act on this, that's also a very, very big deal. So we're all inventing in this kind of mega shift kind of way, and that is where most of the progress will come from. And Colombia is primed to be on the forefront of that for Spanish-speaking South America. So in Italy, people responded to the crisis by saying, well, we want to get together, and now we can't, so we're going to get together with distance, and we're going to play music. Right? This clip made it around the world. I'm sure you've seen it, where people got together and played music, despite the fact that they couldn't get together in the same pub or bar. Right? And so that leads us basically to one conclusion. For the post-corona world, it's no longer just about efficiency. Right? It's about being resilient. It's about being creative. Right? It's about having agility. It's about working together. And technology is very helpful for this, but technology is not just a tool to make stuff faster. It's a tool to reinvent. Right? And of course, you know that in Bogota, now you have the first reaction to COVID by saying, well, we need to improve transport, and that was a long time issue, of course, not just COVID, right? But now bike lanes have been added. And they are responsive, saying, okay, now we can take the bike, we clear the traffic, and we disadvantage the cars, of course, right? Another really clever move, I think, by making that move on a large scale based on the pandemic. So 4 issues here, 4 opportunities. We need to have resilience, we need to be creative, and we need to be agile and also tenacious. Right? I'm sure that wasn't easy to pull off in Bogota. But if we do the right thing, it can have great effect, and this is really what technology is allowing us to do and teaching us to do. So back to the megashifts for a second, right? As I'm looking at the megashifts and saying, okay, what exactly is going to transpire here, it's really quite clear. We have this connection between humans and machines, and all the great stuff that machines can do on computers, and the stuff that we need as humans. We are not machines. We are not data. We have emotions. We make mistakes. We want privacy. We have mystery. We have serendipity, discovery. We do all that weird stuff. We're actually the opposite of machines. And so that is something we have to nurture. We need to consider all of the social, cultural, and human implications of technology when we launch it. Look what happened again with social media. It's one of the best examples. It was a good thing for a long time. We got used to it. And now it's really not such a good thing because it's turned into a money-making, artificial intelligence, content curation machine that manipulates us. And that needs to end, clearly. So we have to think about the consequences when we connect people. What are the consequences? And how can we make a holistic offering? That's going to be very important for the future. So let's remember that technology is making everything digital, like the televisions. There's no more analog televisions. Well, there's still quite a few in Colombia, I think. But everything is going digital. We're going to keep having books and magazines, yes, but the real growth is digital, like music. Today, if you want to listen to music, you push a button on your mobile phone. Right? You don't put a CD in the slot. You may still have cassettes in the car, who knows, right? But here's the thing. Technology is exponential, but humans are not, and this is our challenge if you look at these curves, right? What we're seeing here, technology will explode in power exponentially 4, 8, 16, 32, and so on, and humans are just linear. We're learning, we're getting older, of course, we're getting better, hopefully we're getting more wealthy and defeating poverty, but nature is cyclical. Nature goes up and then it crashes and it comes back. And this is, of course, the conflict with technology. So what we have to make sure is that we use the best of technology because it's so powerful, it's growing so quickly, but we control it enough so that we can still do what we need to do as humans, which is to have mystery and to protect our privacy and to make sure that we don't become robots. Right? So very important, technology is exponential and humans are not. Going into the future, that's going to be one of the key things. How does that handshake happen between humans and machines? And how much is too much? For example, if I would go and work for a company that would make me sit in front of a holographic projection so I could answer questions while they scan my face for reaction, I would probably not think that's a good idea. And if we are flagged on social networks and manipulated, also not a good idea. So very important to make that handshake. I think the real business of digitization is going to be respectful of humans and respectful of what we want. Because after all, I think and you would agree, technology is not what we seek, it's how we seek. It's a tool. We don't seek 5G. We use 5G to seek. Right? So very, very important discussion here about the future. As we're moving into the future, technology is neutral until we use it. And we must make sure that it follows our values, our rules, our accountability, and of course our regulations, which is inevitable. Right? So technology drives our societies, but ethics define that, especially in countries that have a humanistic orientation, like Colombia and of course Switzerland and Europe in general. We care about what humans can do, and we respect human rights. So ethics defines it, and this is very important when we speak to government about how to regulate and how far to go and what taxes to pay. Should there be an automation tax if robots are taking our work? Those are all important issues to debate. So, bottom line on this topic is, the more we connect, and we will connect more all the time, the more we must protect what makes us human. Imagine if, for example, your medical data goes to the cloud, your DNA, your biomes, and will all be in the cloud so we can solve big problems and we can stay healthier. That's very good. But I would want that to be secure, and not just with one company, but with a really important standard. Right? Digital privacy, digital ID, digital control, that's going to be absolutely crucial to our future when we connect like crazy, which we will, of course. Right? So bottom line is here, as the connectivity, data, and analytics are happening all around us, and this will vastly change our world, and it's going to help us with climate change, it's going to help us with smart cities, it's going to help us with education. Key point here is everything should be as connected, smart, and efficient, and automated as necessary, but not more. You may recall that Einstein said something very similar. He said everything should be as simple as possible, but not more. So a very important rule, I think, to keep in mind for our future. Let's talk about some of the challenges and opportunities, which is always coming together. Whatever challenge we have also can emerge as an opportunity. Connectivity and technology in general does not solve social, cultural, or political problems. It actually makes them worse. because it's becoming more efficient. If we want to solve those issues, we have to have the right policies. We have to make the right decision. Great saying from Buckminster Fuller, who once said, a famous author and futurist, humanity is acquiring all the right technologies for all the wrong reasons. And we have to make sure that the reasons are right. And this is going to be crucial, I think, for our future. So, for example, dealing with loneliness. I mean, people that are completely digital and don't see anybody, they get lonely. The power users of social networks have the highest suicide rate of any cohort. Basically, that is something we have to tackle. And of course, what's even more important is inequality. We need to make sure that not just the top 10% can make this technology available to themselves. It has to be given, and it has to be licensed, and it has to be rolled out to everybody. And that is going to be very, very important. And this is also why some of it needs subsidies and all these things to make sure that we don't have the top 10% doing great while the top 90, the lower 90% are descending into more trouble, especially now with COVID. Right? And that is, of course, a policy question that requires lots of wisdom, which is why I have suggested in the past to use something like the Digital Ethics Council, a council of people who decide on what is the right thing to do. That's going to be crucial for our future, quite clearly in so many ways, because COVID-19 is only the first wave of change and of impact and of pain. Right? Because now we're going to the second wave, which is coming pretty much along with COVID next year, probably a year later in real big proportion, and that is climate change. So COVID-19 is a test run for climate change. That means what we're doing right now is going to test us for what we're going to do about climate change. Climate change results in terms of lethal applications and lethal results and issues could be 500 to 1,000x of what we have with COVID. That's why we need to tackle it now while we still can. Very, very important thing, because there is no vaccine for the climate problem. And even if the vaccine solves the COVID problem, which isn't clear, we're going to move into a brighter future once we have it. But climate change clearly is a challenge that is now becoming sort of a business model, right? This is not about stuff that's optional. Look at the climate temperature anomalies that we have seen over the years, and it's just mind-boggling. I'm sure you're familiar with all that stuff in the current hurricane season, for example. Sustainable everything is no longer just an idea. Right? It is basically a business plan. And it's humanity's business plan. And this is where Colombia needs to put its money. Right? The convergence of technology and green and a new way of looking at money. And this has been, of course, discussed worldwide for years, so-called sustainable capitalism. But now it's here. Now we have CEOs of companies all over the world saying, Business Roundtable in the US, we need to expand our view of the world, not just GDP and jobs and growth, but people, planet, purpose, and prosperity. That should be the objective, and every executive at a company should get paid on performance on those four things. And that is changing the world in terms of how we think about capitalism. It is still capitalism, of course, right? I call it sustainable post-capitalism, renewed capitalism. Right? Clearly that is going to change us a lot, because this is what's happening after the COVID wave, right? Climate change and new economic logic. We cannot use the same economic logic that we used in the industrial age 20 years ago, or even the first wave of the internet age. We have larger objectives. We have different things to consider. Right? And basically the rising tide floats all boats. We can't have a COVID-free country in Australia and New Zealand and maybe in Switzerland, but not in Colombia, right? Or any other place. And we're going to need solidarity here and many things that are going down this direction. And this is why we already have a long-term stock exchange in San Francisco. I think Colombia needs one as well. A stock exchange that is for companies who are long-term thinking, people, planet, purpose, and prosperity, not just profit and growth. Think of it like a NASDAQ for sustainability. Call it the SUSTEC if you want. SUSDEC, based in Bogota maybe. So that's where we are going. Clearly Medellin is already there, pursuing this idea of big tech and big green, and also the idea of an equitable society. Clearly we have lots and lots of plans for Medellin, for example, not just to be the smartest city, but also the greenest city. And that is the right direction. I think that should be the direction for everyone, especially all in big cities in Colombia, because, it's also quite clear that's already there. When we compare to Brazil, who's still in the oil economy, recovery hope should not be pinned on oil and gas or agriculture. Right? It's technology. Right? And it's what technology can do. And this is a really powerful driver of our future. Let's talk about work and jobs and what it means for our future. We're moving into a future where humans and machines are increasingly converging. I can speak to my mobile phone, it can speak back to me, I can project an image anywhere, I can go through the system to meet you remotely. Clearly we're moving into a future where that's going to be kind of the new normal. And then we have to ask this question, how far would you take this? Right? Would you take it all the way to the brain-computer interface and connected devices? I think at a certain point we have to wonder about this. As Marshall McLuhan famously said, we shape our tools and thereafter they shape us. We have to be a bit careful with this. At a certain point, of course, the tools are great, but when the tool becomes the religion, right, or the drug, that's probably not such a good idea. So we should keep the tool what it is and keep in control of it rather than vice versa. Automation is one of those things. Clearly, every job that is commodity and this does the same thing over and over again, routines, we all have routines. Computers will learn all routines, all of them. Right? But is every job that is a routine 100%? Well, driving a car is kind of routine, but it's definitely not 100%. Call centers are routines, but not 100%. So really what's happening is here that the end of routine is not really the end of work. It's just a way for us to move up if we are trained and if we're ready. Look what's happening in Amazon. They are the master of automation, and they're gone up very quickly here in terms of the numbers of employees. So now last year they hired 150,000 people despite the automation. And that gives me hope for a new future that will discover new jobs and that it will not be this, right? The useless humans. We are not going to be useless because technology is getting fast and smart. Some of our jobs will be useless. Some of our routines, my routines, right? Whether it's low-level banking, whether it's communicating, whether it's automation of administration, well, all the way down to the dentist being able to use a machine for dental hygienics. That's already been tried. Anything that can be digitized will be. But here's the flip side. Very important, I think, when we think about the future, especially of Colombia. What is the most valuable thing? It's the stuff that machines can't do. Creativity, imagination, ethics, emotions, compassion, mystery. And this is what our kids have to learn. This is what we have to learn. This is what we have to go back to. Yes, of course we should know about technology. We should be smart with technology. But really what makes technology work is the fact that it's not human. It's efficient. It's fast. Right? It's logic. We're not logic. We have logic, but we decide differently, and we are much quicker with this. Whatever is simple for a human is hard for a computer, and vice versa. It's called the Moravec paradox. You may have heard it before. Most important for us is that we don't want to end up here. Right? We don't want to end up in a place where we are kind of like a machine. So I'm much more worried about this than about artificial intelligence. The biggest danger is not that machines will take over, but that we become too much like them. And that will be, if we become a commodity, that will be the end of what we can do as humans. And this is why it's important that, of course, we study technology STEM, but we also study the flip side, the humanities, music, arts, sports, creativity, imagination, ethics, philosophy. And I think that's where we're going in the future. Clearly, that's going to be so important to teach our kids to be human. Right? Because on top of the science and the engineering, this is what's really going to drive our economy. Our ultimate job is to be human. And technology will help us with this if we make the right decisions and the right moves. Let me give you some final thoughts. First, when we think about the future, scrap this sentence. There is no such thing as a defined future. Stop asking what will the future bring. It will bring what we make it. It doesn't just fall from the sky. It's not made in Silicon Valley or in China. Here's the key question. What kind of future do we want? What do we want our future to be? What kind of future do you want your kids to have? And that will drive our decision making, right? That will drive the juggling. The future is a choice that we make. We make choices about whether we want it to be green or dirty, whether we want medical services available for everyone, whether we want technology to take that role, right? It's a crisis right now that we're seeing right now at this very moment, and most for next year, right? And clearly a global crisis that is very difficult for many of us, including myself. But it's also creating an opportunity, because now we're saying, you know what, it's not working. Can we do better? Can we make principal changes? Look what's happening in America as a result of this crisis. Principal changes are coming up for next year, very big changes, and I'm hopeful about this. But we need to get off this idea of that everything is so complicated and so difficult, volatile, uncertain. We need to turn this around and do what I call flip the VUCA, right? Make it fast, unorthodox, co-creation, and awesomeness, the good old American word. And technology will help us with this. The faster that we connect, the better we can do this, if we have the right approach. So as we go in the future of game change, as I mentioned earlier, let's be aware of this. We are thinking that this is kind of linear, like it looks like here, a gradual speeding up, but the reality is not like this. Right? Every year is faster. If you think the future is 10 years away, it'll be here in 3 years. And many things are much faster and other ones take forever. It's the usual sort of gradually then suddenly idea that's been used many times to describe technology. But we're going warp drive into this future. You got to get ready for this. You got to understand what it means. And of course, as Mark Benioff said wisely several times in the past, we have to get ready to get to the future ahead of our customers and be ready to greet them when they arrive. That's our mission. To get ahead into the future and get ready for when it arrives. So taking care of today and going into the future. So when we connect with technology, it's very important that we keep in mind that we also protect what makes us human. That we embrace technology and we use it to get ahead, but that we figure out a way to remain human and a way that protects our humanity. And I always say we should put the human back inside. This idea of making sure that humans are still in control and that humans are still the ones that matter and that technology is a tool, not the purpose of our lives. That balance will be crucial to our future. So I want to thank you very much for listening to my keynote. Muchas gracias. Hasta próxima. And I do hope to see you again down the road. And thank you very much for tuning in. And I'm Gerd Leonhard, Futurist from Zurich, Switzerland. Thank you.